Grace International School began with a dream. A decade before Grace became a reality, the dream of a school which would serve the missions community in Asia began to stir within my wife and my heart. These dreams were fueled by stories of missionaries who felt they had to leave the mission field and return to their home countries due to lack of quality educational options for their children. There was a great need for a school like Grace to be established in Chiang Mai for so many missionaries all over Asia. When missionary families are faced with a problem of inadequate educational options for their children, there are only three choices available to them: stay in the field and sacrifice their children's education, split the family and send the kids off to a boarding school, or leave the field and return home.
In the early 1990s, there were over 2,500 missionaries in Chiang Mai. With missionary attrition rates nearing 100%, Gene Foltz, chairman of New Tribes Mission, commissioned a study that showed that the lack of quality educational opportunities was one of the main causes for missionaries leaving the field. Clearly, there was an urgent need for a school to serve this community. Gene, his wife Sherry, and their children were serving as missionaries in Chiang Mai, Thailand, when God first began to spark Gene's imagination with the vision of what would later become Grace International School. Today, the missionary community has grown from 2,500 to over 5,000 missionaries and nonprofit workers based in Chiang Mai that serve in countries all across Asia. There are a few reasons for this rapid growth. First, Chiang Mai is centrally located in Asia, where 1/3 of the world's population lives within a 3-hour flight, and 75% of unreached people live in the 10 countries surrounding Thailand. This makes Chiang Mai a strategic hub and launching point for ministries and nonprofit organizations. Secondly, the Constitution of Thailand protects the freedom of religion. This means that even though Thailand is 95% Buddhist, missionaries and churches can be open with their faith without interference from the government. In addition, Chiang Mai's beauty, affordability, and amenities make it one of the most livable cities in the world. These factors have led to hundreds of mission organizations and over 5,000 missionaries to base their work out of Chiang Mai, creating the highest concentration of missionaries in the world. And yet one of the most crucial components allowing missionary families to serve in Asia was lacking: adequate educational options for the children of missionaries. Because there were no affordable options available in the early 1990s, many missionary families in Asia were forced to make the heart-wrenching decisions to send their children to attend boarding schools or to live with relatives in the United States. For missionaries Mike and Judy Christian, providing their children with a quality Christian education while keeping their family together was a top priority.
Judy and I made some sacrifices when we accepted God's calling into full-time ministry back in 1978. Providing our children with a good education in a healthy environment was not something we were willing to sacrifice. At the time, Chiang Mai did not have any affordable options. When we first arrived, we put our children in a local English-speaking school, but it was not what we felt our kids needed for their long-term growth.
During the 1980s, there were two main schools in Chiang Mai open to missionaries in Asia. One of the schools was out of reach for most due to its high tuition costs. The other school was only able to accept a limited number of students and didn't have the teachers or resource to expand. In 1995, Gene Foltz and a few other missionaries, including Mike Christian, began meeting regularly to pray about starting an affordable, Christ-centered school in Chiang Mai.
It's a big jump to move from a dream to believing it is a vision that the Lord is laying on one's heart. Psalms 37:4 says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." But the obstacles were large and looming, some coming from within the missionary community itself. Once I started to realize that this may be God's direction in my heart, I became excited and began sharing this vision with others. I didn't expect opposition. People said things like, "You're going to cause a division in the mission community by doing this," or "This is impossible," or "You will never be able to raise the money for such a large project."
But God had plans that went farther and deeper than the establishment of a school. His plans went into the very heart of His truth for the nations. May they be brought to complete unity to let the world know that You sent Me, and have loved them just as You have loved Me. John 17:23. Believers living in unity and oneness are a powerful testimony to unbelievers of God's love for His children.
We did receive a lot of positive feedback about the vision, but the negativity from others in our community started to discourage Sherry and I. But we felt a peace of God urging us forward. The interesting thing is that there was some truth in all the statements made. But even if we were not qualified or had no funding and didn't have a universal support from the Christian community, I knew God could turn this impossible dream into a reality.
In 1998, Gene established a board of directors represented by 12 mission organizations who had significant presence in Thailand. The newly formed board regularly met to pray and plan for the opening of a school. Through these meetings and God's provision, the school soon began to take shape.
How did Grace International School receive its name? The board and I played around with many ideas and names until one day, my son, John, came home and said, "You know, some of my friends and I were talking today, and I told them the only way we're ever going to have a school like what we want is by God's grace. So I think we should call it Grace Academy." Well, it sounded great to me, and from that day forward, we called it Grace Academy. 2 years later, during the certification process, we had to change the name to Grace International School for the Thai government. That name still exists to amplify the beauty of God's grace in all people.
Prayer was an integral part of the founding of Grace. After 11 years of service in Papua New Guinea, Paul and Paula Jarrett moved to Chiang Mai to help Gene and Sherry turn their vision of grace into a reality. The core values which make Grace International unique today are the same values that inspired the original board of directors in 1995.
The most important thing that Judy and I did was to pray daily together, and with Gene and Sherry Foltz as couples, we prayerfully believed God was in it. We trusted God for everything. We wanted Grace to be Christ-centered to the core, not just to provide a quality education, but one in which Christ is integrated in everything from athletics and music to math and history. In order to keep the tuition low for families, we took a leap of faith as a board to ask each of the teachers and administrators to raise their own support so that we could give an affordable education to missionaries and nonprofit workers.
One of the really incredible things about the teachers at Grace is that they really invest in your lives. And a personal example for me is my business teacher, who would take me out for coffee and find out what I was interested in and really try to pour into me and get to know who I was. Even after high school, he came to visit me in college and really showed me he loved me, which really, really meant a lot to me.
One of the largest hurdles in the founding of Grace International School was the need for a permanent location.
We didn't have the money to necessarily build a new school. We had raised enough to buy an older facility in town and slowly renovate it to meet our needs. As a board, we looked at over 30 different locations, including a nightclub, a grocery store, and an auto dealership. After an extensive search, we found the location that we felt would be best for the school in our price range. We were ready to close on an old car dealership, but at the closing, the seller increased his price so high, we felt we had to walk away. Back to square one. We were pretty discouraged and didn't know what to do next.
Fear started to grip my heart. I had no idea where we would put all these students who had already enrolled, but grounded in daily prayers of our team, we knew the Lord would provide, and He did so in many miraculous ways. Thomasak, a good friend of mine, contacted me, and he told me about his health club that was moving towards a bankruptcy, and it was exactly what we needed for a school.
In May 1999, 3 months before Grace was scheduled to begin, the Lord opened the door for them to rent the neighborhood athletic club in a gated community called World Club Land. It would need a lot of work in order for the property to be used as a school. At that time, Thai law mandated that all schools be owned by a Thai citizen. The board of Grace International School would ask Kun Prayat Kunjintana, Dr. Chayun, and Paul Utley, early friends of Grace and leaders in the church, to take ownership and serve at Grace. In faith, the board announced its plan to open Grace International School in August 1999. It was hard for Gene and the board to know then what a blessing this facility would be for thousands of future students over the next 17 years. On July 24, 1999, the board held their first meeting on the new campus. Grace leadership and parents had less than 1 month to transform the facilities from a sport club to a school. The shooting range was converted into classrooms, the restaurant was transformed into a library, and new carpet replaced water-damaged areas.
People seemed to come out of the woodwork to help. People such as George McDowell organized churches and universities from all over the world to send musical instruments, books, and other materials to help the students at Grace.
On August 15th, a major storm hit Chiang Mai, flooding the school only hours before the first day of school was to begin. Determined, parents and staff set about to pump out the water and clean up the mess. 1 week later, Grace opened its doors for the very first time with 169 students, 30 staff, and a heart to serve the missionary community.
And it was quite a relief to us, really, to see Grace get started and Caleb to have what looked like a much more stable situation than what he had been facing before.
And it was very special because it just broadened his opportunities. It really helped prepare him for future education. It gave us a real sense of him being taken care of as far as educational needs.
Grace International School continues to be a place which embodies the values of unity amidst diversity, a microcosm of the body of Christ. God brought dedicated teachers, administrators, coaches, and volunteers from all over the globe to serve at Grace. Each of the 5 mission organizations represented by the Board of Trustees were asked to lead the way in recruiting teachers. Not unexpectedly, each year God has provided the teachers and staff necessary to serve the missionary community in Asia.
Throughout the years, one of the best parts of Grace has been the relationship between students and teachers. What you see at Grace is the way teachers pour themselves into the lives of their students and the way they disciple them in and out of the classroom. This is something rare, and that value can't be measured. I can't express what it means to me as a parent to have so many wonderful teachers and coaches investing in my children's lives, both academically and spiritually.
Anybody who was bold enough to fly overseas, serve and teach for free, is somebody of strong character and even stronger faith.
In 1997, 2 years before the opening of Grace International School, a downturn in the Asian economy found the owners of the athletic club in bankruptcy. The facilities were repossessed by the bank and put up for sale. Previously too expensive for Grace to purchase outright, the board began exploring what would be necessary for Grace to purchase the World Club facility. Recognizing the positive impact that Grace was already having in the lives of their missionary families, 5 mission organizations provided part of the funding necessary to make an offer on the property. Because of the Lord's provision, on June 15, 2001, Grace International School was able to purchase the foreclosed property from the bank.
Several friends of Grace, such as Pratt and Yeen, had a great love for Grace and had a vision for what God would do in and through the school. They personally bought property around the existing facility and allowed Grace to use this land for future expansion.
The World Club land property was such a blessing for over 17 years. It was clear that it was exactly what we needed to become established as a school. It was meeting a huge need in the missions community, and we knew that the school would continue to grow for many years.
In 2008, the school's leadership were feeling led by the Lord to begin exploring the purchase of a larger property that would help the school continue to expand. Countries across Asia were becoming more hostile to foreign missionaries and local kingdom workers. Because of this, Chiang Mai saw more and more Christian workers basing their ministry in the area while continuing their work beyond the Thai border. With Chiang Mai as their base, they were able to travel in and out of their country of ministry. Over the next several years, Grace would plan and fundraise for the purchase of new land. In 2010, 39 acres of rice fields were purchased outside the town for the future expansion of Grace International School. Little did they know how quickly this land would come into need.
I was chairman of the board at the time when someone brought me a piece of paper saying, turn over the administration of the sports club to us by the end of the month or we will take you to court. A few days later, I got another handwritten note, turn over the deeds of the administration building to us by the end of the month, or we take you to court. I didn't know what to do but get on my face before the Lord and say, God, this is too big for me. And so, sure enough, we turned it all over to Him, and He has helped us get through this.
After years of losses and appeals, Grace was ordered to vacate the property and pay to restore the facilities to its original condition. Additionally, Grace would not be compensated for the original purchase price of the complex. Once again, Grace International School found itself without a campus. However, as God has done many times before, He again demonstrated that what we may see as the closing of doors is actually the opening of brand new doors. As it turned out, a brand new school was built nearby, a few months prior to Grace's eviction from the World Club Land complex. This new school had a beautiful campus with lots of unused space. They agreed to let Grace use some of that space for 3 years. This gave Grace the time needed to plan, construct, and fundraise for the new campus.
By the time Grace was ready to build on our new property, we had realized the value of the land that we were building on had increased by 5 times. Little did we know when God led us to buy this land in 2010 that 10 years later, when we started the building process, that the land would be way out of reach on what we could afford. Well, it's kind of a confirmation that God had a plan from the beginning to provide this land so we could build this school.
Looking at our new home on the new campus, it's amazing to see how far God has brought us. We have gone from a small house in the 1990s to this incredible campus surrounded by rice fields. It's just beautiful.
The ministry of Grace International School over the years has allowed thousands of families to live and serve in Asia. In 1999, Grace served 172 students, representing dozens of missions organizations and nationalities. The parents of students at Grace are serving in countries all over the region. 20 years later, Grace serves 665 students, of which 90% are missionary kids from 326 families. These families are from 20 nations and serve in 30 countries, reaching out to millions of people.
God has seen us through this stormy time in our history, but we believe and know that God has helped us step by step, even until today.
The need for Grace International School has not diminished over the years. In fact, it has increased exponentially. The ministry of Grace has allowed countless missionaries to remain on the field while their children have received a quality Christian education, being loved and discipled by their staff and teachers.
Our kids have been able to get great education, and I have been able to continue to serve in a closed access country. Without this opportunity here, we probably would have moved back to the USA.
The history of Grace is God's story of provision and faithfulness to His children. Looking back, we can see how each strand of the story has impacted missions in Asia. Because of Grace, a harvest of unity has been sown among ministries in Chiang Mai, and countless people have grown deeper in their faith. Additionally, thousands of students have been taught by example to love God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. As a result, many people all over Asia have heard the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
GIS belongs to God. It's God's school. We'll be here as long as He wants us to be.
In Henry Blackaby's book, Experiencing God, he writes this line: "Find out where God is working and join His work." Well, we feel that was the case with Grace International School. We were fortunate enough to be in a place that when God was wanting to see a school started, we were available. It has been a wonderful journey to see God's hand move in such miraculous ways over the years. We can only imagine how God will continue to use Grace International School to impact His kingdom here in Thailand and throughout Southeast Asia.